A few years ago, heart surgery patients were forbidden to exercise because it was a great stress on their cardiovascular system. Later studies showed that those cardiac patients who exercise live much longer and have fewer cardiovascular problems than those who do not. Medicine often generates hypotheses and throws them out as absolute truth without validating or refuting them. Ultimately, patients who strictly follow the flawed advice are the ones who suffer the consequences. Another hypothesis is that the central nervous system. Your brain needs a continuous supply of nutrients, and fasting can be deadly for neuronal development. Have you ever heard that fasting kills neurons? That you need to have a big breakfast to perform cognitively? That if we don't eat 5 meals a day, our metabolism will slow down? And will our brain do the same? That the brain feeds on sugar. Yes, you've heard it, and in this video, you're going to understand why it's a lie. And if you stay until the end, you'll receive 3 practical tips to improve your concentration and memory using intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting is a physiological stressor, like running 10K, deadlifting 220 pounds, or swimming at the beach in January. It's a stressor because it implies stress, a stimulus, and it's physiological because your body expects it. Having evolved in the context of multiple periodic and intermittent stressors, now you have to understand that there are good stressors and bad stressors. Fasting for 100 days can kill you, just like running 200 kilometers or lifting 500 kilograms off the ground. But at the right dose, known as a hormetic dose, stress generates a very positive response in the body. This happened when we hunted antelopes, and it still happens now. When you fast, let's say for about 16 hours, glycogen stores start to deplete, and your body will initiate the so-called metabolic switch. Switch means change. What change? Change from glucose consumption to that of fatty acids, that is, you will change fuel. Meanwhile, interesting things will happen in your nervous system. There is a molecule called brain-derived neurotropic factor, which stands for brain-derived neurotropic factor, which is basically a kind of brain fertilizer. It strengthens neuronal synapses, which are the contacts that some neurons have with others, and even generates the appearance of new neurons in some areas like the hippocampus. It's closely related to long-term memory. It also causes neurons to grow a series of very extravagant hairs called dendrites, which are basically antennas through which they connect and communicate with other neurons. There is a clear increase in brain-derived neurotropic factor when we expose ourselves to stressors such as fasting or physical exercise. But there are other things that also happen during fasting. And they are an increase in nerve growth factor or nerve growth factor, a close relative of brain-derived neurotropic factor and with similar functions. An increase in GH hormone or growth hormone, which maintains your muscle mass and helps you lose fat. Improvement in the quality and quantity of your mitochondria, the power plants of your cells. Increase in autophagy or cellular recycling, the mechanism by which your cells get rid of what doesn't work. To renew the cellular inventory. It's like a kind of periodic car checkup. Whatever doesn't work well goes to the trash, thus preventing your car from breaking down on the highway when you least expect it. If we delve a little deeper into physiology and evolutionary biology, these data won't surprise you. Think that, as Madsen defines very well in this article, throughout evolution, humans have been exposed to daily and intermittent challenges that have chiseled and modified their cellular pathways, metabolism and signaling cascades, which is perfectly defined in this article from the science journal A Time to Fast. That is, challenges have defined our physiology and have generated adaptive responses to face them. Fasting generally preceded hunting. Most of your ancestors hunted while fasting. Having a clear, focused and alert mind was of vital importance. You could miss the sound of your prey's footsteps or the movement of a bush in the distance. It was also important to be physically and muscularly prepared to work even in a fasting situation. It would be useless to hear the crunch of the leaf if you faltered when you had to sprint to throw the spear. That's why we are perfectly adapted to think, concentrate, be alert, and do physical exercise while fasting, and we probably benefit from it. However, with our daily lifestyle of couch, desk, and meals every 3 hours, our physiology has lost practice. So here are 3 tips to improve your memory, concentration, and alertness levels. Using intermittent fasting, follow the principle of progression. If you've never fasted for 16 hours, don't start with 16 hours. Start with 10 or 12. When you feel comfortable with that number of hours, extend the fasting period. You can't perform cognitively if you're not adapted to this physiological stressor. Would you lift 120 kilos of dead weight on your first day of training? Probably not. The same goes for intermittent fasting. Hydrate well. Most side effects of intermittent fasting, fatigue, headache, nausea, would be solved with a good intake of water and salts. Accompany fasting with other nootropic substances such as black tea or even L-theanine, an amino acid present in black tea that acts as a nootropic, enhancing concentration. Coffee, along with L-theanine, has a synergistic effect. There are even formulations that combine caffeine and L-theanine. I'll leave them in the description. I take this opportunity to remind you that the registration period for the intermittent fasting course we are conducting ends on November 15th. Ismael Galancho, Reina and I. In this course you will find more than 6 hours of material updated with the latest scientific evidence, where topics as diverse as intermittent fasting and sports performance will be discussed, intermittent fasting and cancer, or tips for properly implementing intermittent fasting into your daily routine. And if you want us to continue delving into intermittent fasting and the brain, leave your comment below. If we get 10 requests and reach 200 likes, you'll have the video. And now, if you want to view exclusive content where I talk about intermittent fasting and neurodegenerative diseases, check out Patreon, you have the link in the description. Many thanks to Alejandra González Mota, David Tobía del Busto, Didac, Jorge Acosta Morales, Jorge Viña. Special Convention Katsimi Luis Reyes, Manu María, Sanchidrián Lavado, Maribel Siles Ruiz, María Andreina, Atencio, Miguel, Miguel Ángel, Santa María Dulce, and Pepe López Rodríguez. For supporting the creation of content for this channel through your collaboration on Patreon. Your generosity moves mountains. A big hug and see you in the next video.